I still remember the day it all began. The day I realized I wasn't living with my husband. I was living under his control. And what I'm about to tell you will shock you, just as it shocked me. From the outside, our life looked perfect. People would often say, "You two are the perfect couple. You're lucky." Friends, relatives, strangers, everyone admired the life I seemed to have. A beautiful home, fancy dinners, laughter echoing in the halls. Everything a girl dreams of after marriage. But behind those closed doors, behind the smiles and the Instagram perfect pictures, a completely different reality existed. First, it was subtle. Question here, a suggestion there. Where are you going? Or who are you talking to? I laughed it off. I told myself he was just concerned, protective. After all, that's what love looks like, isn't it? But the concern quickly turned into rules, and rules became control, and control soon became a cage. I wasn't allowed to make decisions, not even small ones. The first time it hit me was when I wanted to go out with a friend I hadn't seen in months. I remember texting her excitedly, "Can we meet for coffee tomorrow?" And my husband replying instantly, "No, you can't go. I don't want you going there." I froze. But why? I asked innocently, thinking it was a joke. He wasn't laughing. He gave me that look. A cold, calculating stare that froze my blood. I said no, he replied sharply. And just like that, my freedom was gone. I nodded silently, swallowing my frustration, pretending it didn't hurt that it wasn't just friends. He monitored my every interaction. My phone, my emails, my messages, nothing was private anymore. Sometimes I felt like I was a prisoner in my own home. I tried reasoning, I tried explaining, I tried asking for trust, but every attempt only made him stricter. "I can't trust you," he would say. "You need guidance. You need me." First, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this is what marriage feels like. But then came the restrictions, the silent punishments for stepping out of line. A raised eyebrow, a sharp tone, ignoring me for hours, sometimes days. Every time I tried to speak up, he would twist it into my fault. "You're ungrateful," he said once. "I do everything for you and this is how you respond." I remember one night vividly. I had just finished a long day at work. I wanted nothing more than to relax, scroll through my favorite shows, maybe call my sister. But the moment I picked up my phone, he noticed. He snatched it away and barked, "No calls. No scrolling. You're not going anywhere." Something inside me broke that night. It wasn't just the phone, it was the constant suffocation. The feeling of being trapped. I tried to cry silently, in the corner of our living room. I whispered to myself, "This isn't love. This is control. This isn't life. This is a cage." Every day the cage tightened. He would criticize my clothes, my work, even my thoughts. "Why are you wearing that?" he demanded one morning. "You look cheap. Don't you want to look presentable for me?" I nodded silently, tears threatening to fall. Even the smallest decisions were no longer mine. And yet, for some reason, I stayed. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was hope, hope that he would change, hope that this was temporary, hope that one day he'd see me as an equal. But deep down I knew, the cage was not going to open on its own. The breaking point came quietly, almost imperceptibly. One evening I tried to call my sister, someone I could trust. I wanted to hear her voice, to tell her about my day, about the suffocation I felt. But as soon as I dialed, he appeared behind me. "Who are you calling?" His tone wasn't just firm, it was venomous. I froze, the phone trembling in my hand. "It's my sister. I just want to talk for a few minutes." I whispered. "No, you won't. Give me that phone," he demanded. And just like that, my lifeline was cut. My sister's voice never reached me. My window to the outside world, my connection to someone who could understand me, was gone in an instant. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling more trapped than ever. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even think clearly. All I could feel was the weight of his control, pressing down on me like a stone. But something started to stir within me. A tiny spark. A whisper in my mind saying, "This isn't the end. You are stronger than this. You deserve more. You deserve freedom." I didn't know what that spark meant yet. I didn't know how I would turn it into action. But I knew one thing for certain. I could not continue like this. I could not remain a prisoner in the very home that was supposed to be my sanctuary. And so began the silent observation. I started noticing everything. His habits, his patterns, the little weaknesses he showed when he thought no one was watching. Every word he said, every move he made, I stored in my mind quietly, secretly, as if preparing for something I couldn't yet name. The spark of rebellion was there, hidden beneath fear and exhaustion. I didn't know when I would act on it. I didn't know how far I would go. But I knew the cage would eventually break. And when it did, he would never see it coming. Because I was trapped, yes. But a trapped soul, when pushed too far, can become the most dangerous force of all. And that's exactly what was starting to awaken inside me. This was just the beginning. The moment my life changed forever. And what happened next would shock him, shock my family, and shock anyone who ever thought they could control me. After that night, I realized the cage around me was closing faster than I had imagined. It wasn't just small rules anymore. It had become a full-scale prison. Every action, every thought, every plan I made was now monitored, judged, and restricted. It started subtly. First, he decided what I could wear. I remember one morning I picked a light blue dress I loved. Something simple. Something that made me feel alive. The moment he saw it, his expression changed. His lips pressed into a thin line, eyes narrowing. "Why are you wearing that?" he demanded. I tried to smile, thinking it was a joke. But the next words froze me. "You look inappropriate. Change it now." I felt my chest tighten as I walked to my closet. I changed quietly, feeling a mixture of shame, anger, and disbelief. How could someone I had trusted so deeply reduce me to this? To obey every whim? I wanted to scream, to fight, but the fear of his reaction kept me silent. The control didn't stop at clothes. My friendships were the next target. Every time I mentioned meeting a friend or even responding to a message, his eyes would pierce mine. "Who is that?" he would ask, always with that same coldness. "I don't like her. Don't call her again." And I didn't. I wanted to argue, to explain, but I realized it was useless. Every word I spoke was twisted against me. Every attempt at independence was punished. Even the things I loved, my hobbies, my small joys, were taken away. I loved painting, a simple hobby I had cherished since childhood. One day I brought out my paints, hoping to lose myself in color and canvas. He noticed immediately. "You're wasting time. What's the point?" "Stop it," he snapped. My paints, my brushes, my inspiration, all taken away under the guise of discipline. Meals, conversations, even laughter. Nothing was safe. He criticized every bite I ate, every laugh I shared. "Eat slower. Don't laugh like that. Control yourself." It was as if my entire being was wrong, and he was the only one allowed to judge it. Sleep, too, became a battlefield. Some nights I would lie awake, heart pounding, terrified of what he might say or do the next morning. Even small things like choosing what time to wake up or what to eat for breakfast had to be approved by him. The house that should have been a sanctuary was now a place of anxiety, of constant vigilance. I couldn't let my guard down, not for a second. The worst part? The isolation. He didn't just control my actions, he controlled my mind. Slowly my world shrank. Friends disappeared. Calls were blocked. Messages deleted. Visits forbidden. Even family became distant because he insisted, subtly but firmly, that I should only rely on him. "You don't need anyone else. I'm enough," he would say, his voice soft but terrifyingly final. Every day I felt myself shrinking. My confidence, my independence, my very identity, all chipped away under the weight of his control. I couldn't speak freely. I couldn't act freely. I couldn't even think freely. And yet, the world outside saw nothing wrong. To them I smiled, laughed, posted pictures, played the perfect wife. But inside I was screaming silently, trapped in a golden cage with no way out. And then came the moments of punishment, subtle, cruel, and designed to break me completely. A raised eyebrow could ruin an entire day. A sharp tone, a cold glare, a sarcastic comment, all reminders of who had the power. Sometimes he would ignore me for hours, leaving me in unbearable silence. Other times, he would criticize endlessly until tears blurred my vision. I started walking on eggshells, carefully planning every word and every move to avoid conflict. One evening I tried to defy him, just slightly. I wanted to read a book before bed. Something harmless, something that made me feel human. I picked it up quietly, hoping it would go unnoticed. But he caught me within minutes. What do you think you're doing?" His voice wasn't just angry, it was a weapon. I dropped the book immediately. I said no. "You follow my rules," he hissed. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing fully how deep the control ran. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't minor. It was total. I began noticing patterns. His moods, his weaknesses, the tiny cracks in his armor. I realized that beneath the facade of control, there were moments when he was vulnerable, careless, or distracted. But I couldn't act yet. I couldn't risk exposure. Every day I planned silently, storing memories, noting habits, watching reactions. Even though I was trapped, even though I felt powerless, something inside me refused to die. That spark, that tiny voice from the first night of suffocation, grew stronger with each day. "You are not weak. You are not powerless. You will find a way." And so, I continued, obedient on the surface, patient in secret. Every smile I forced, every word I carefully chose, every rule I followed, all were steps toward something bigger. I was learning him, studying him, preparing. The cage felt tighter every day, but the plan in my mind grew stronger. Little did he know, every command, every restriction, every attempt to break me was only fueling the fire inside me. The fire of revenge. The fire of freedom. And one day, when the time was right, that fire would burn brighter than anything he had ever imagined. This was the darkest time of my life, yet it was the moment I started preparing for the day I would finally break free and shock him completely. For months I had lived under his control, a shadow of the woman I used to be. Every day was carefully monitored, every word I spoke measured, every action scrutinized. I felt like a puppet in his hands, and I hated myself for staying silent. But then one ordinary evening, something extraordinary happened. Something that changed everything. It started innocently enough. I was looking for a document on my husband's laptop, something I had innocently forgotten to return. I knew I shouldn't touch his things, but that spark inside me, that tiny voice that had been growing stronger each day, whispered, "Look, just look." I opened the laptop quietly, heart racing, trying not to make a sound. His files were neatly organized, as always. Work folders, finances, bills. But then I noticed a folder I had never seen before. Its name was simple. Secrets. My curiosity surged. I hesitated for a moment. Every instinct told me to close it and leave. But I couldn't. I clicked. What I saw made my stomach drop. Photos, messages, videos, evidence that my husband had been hiding a life from me. A life I had never suspected. My mind raced. How could he do this? How could he lie to me every single day? Among the files, there were messages between him and someone else, someone I had never met. Conversations filled with laughter, plans, and secrets that excluded me completely. He had been manipulating me, controlling me, isolating me, all while living a life of deception. Every rule, every restriction, every harsh word he had used against me suddenly made sense. It wasn't love. It wasn't protection. It was control to hide the truth, to keep me in the dark. I felt a surge of emotions, anger, betrayal, hurt, a storm raging inside me. For the first time in months, I let myself breathe, really breathe, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my chest. This discovery was my spark, my chance, my turning point. I spent hours going through the files, documenting everything, saving every piece of evidence. I had to understand the full extent of his deception before I acted. I needed to be careful. One wrong move and he could sense my curiosity, my defiance, and tighten his grip even more. But this time I wasn't just a victim. I was alert, aware, and plotting silently. As I dug deeper, I realized how meticulous he had been. The lies, the manipulations, the ways he had isolated me. Everything was part of a plan to protect his secret life. He thought I was blind. He thought I was powerless. He thought I would obey him forever. And for a brief moment, I felt a thrilling rush of satisfaction. Not yet revenge, but the knowledge that I now held the upper hand in ways he couldn't even imagine. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was alive with possibilities. I replayed every moment of our marriage in my head, every rule, every punishment, every look of disapproval. And suddenly I saw them differently. Each act of control, each attempt to break me down was now fuel for my plan. Every fear he had instilled in me became a tool I could use. I started formulating my strategy. I couldn't confront him yet. He was too vigilant, too careful, too powerful. I had to wait to bide my time. But now I knew exactly where to strike. The key was in his secret, in the life he had tried to hide. And I had the knowledge. I had the power. I had the spark that could ignite a storm he would never recover from. I remember sitting in the dark that night, my heart pounding, a notebook open in front of me. I began writing down every detail, every weakness, every opportunity. I documented everything I had discovered, planning my moves meticulously. I wasn't just thinking about escape, I was thinking about justice, about showing him that control and deception could never last when someone refuses to be broken. By dawn, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: clarity. The fear that had suffocated me for so long was gone, replaced by a sharp focus. I wasn't powerless anymore. I wasn't trapped anymore. I had discovered the truth, and the truth was my weapon. The turning point had come quietly, unexpectedly, almost like a whisper in the chaos of my life. But it had changed everything. I realized that I didn't have to wait for him to loosen his grip. I didn't have to plead for freedom or hope for change. I had the knowledge, the evidence, and the plan. And now the fire inside me roared with a force I had never felt before. That night, I made a silent promise to myself. I will reclaim my life. I will turn this cage into his nightmare. And when I do, he will finally see what it feels like to be powerless. Little did he know, the woman he thought he controlled was already planning the moment that would shock him completely. The moment that would finally make him pay for every lie, every restriction, every cruel word. And that moment was closer than he could imagine. This was the night everything changed. The night I discovered the truth. And the night my journey from a trapped wife to a woman in control of her destiny truly began. After that night, nothing about me changed on the surface, and that was exactly the point. I smiled when he expected me to smile. I obeyed when he watched me closely. I played the role of the quiet, controlled wife so perfectly that he never suspected a thing. But inside, everything was different. Inside, I was awake. I understood one thing very clearly. Revenge couldn't be emotional. It had to be slow, calculated, and invisible. If I rushed, if I confronted him, I would lose everything. So I waited. I observed. I listened. I started paying attention to his routines. What time he left for work. When he checked his phone. Which days he was careless and which days he was alert. I noticed how confident he felt when he thought I was broken. That confidence was his weakness. He underestimated me, and that mistake would cost him dearly. I kept collecting evidence quietly. Screenshots, messages, dates, small details that meant nothing on their own but everything when put together. I stored them safely, hidden where he would never think to look. Every new piece of proof gave me strength. Fear slowly turned into control, my control. At the same time, I began rebuilding myself in silence. I regained small freedoms without raising suspicion. I read when he wasn't watching. I planned when he was distracted. I reminded myself who I was before he tried to erase me. Every quiet moment became preparation. I also planned my timing carefully. I knew there would be one moment when he would feel untouchable. Relaxed, confident, careless. That was the moment I was waiting for. Revenge wasn't about shouting or exposing him immediately. It was about letting him believe he had already won, right before everything collapsed. Sometimes late at night, doubt crept in. What if this fails? What if he finds out? But then I remembered every rule, every insult, every time he made me feel small. Those memories hardened my resolve. This wasn't cruelty. This was survival. That I rehearsed everything in my mind again and again. What I would say, what I would show, when I would stay silent, when I would walk away. I made sure there were no loose ends, no emotional slips, no room for him to twist the story against me again. The most important part of my plan was patience. I learned that true power doesn't rush. It waits. It watches. It strikes only when escape is guaranteed. And I promised myself one thing. When I finally acted, there would be no turning back. He still believed I was trapped. He still believed I needed him. He still believed I was afraid. And that belief made him careless. He had no idea that every step I took, every word I spoke, every quiet moment of obedience was leading toward a single outcome. The day he would lose all control. Because I wasn't planning an argument. I wasn't planning a fight. I was planning my freedom. and when the time came he would finally understand what it feels like to be powerless. The day I had been waiting for arrived quietly. No thunder. No warning. Just an ordinary morning, the kind that hides disasters behind routine. He woke up confident, relaxed, completely unaware that this would be the last day he ever controlled me. I watched him from across the room as he drank his coffee, scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world could touch him. He didn't notice the calm in my face. Not fear, not obedience, but clarity. That calm was the most dangerous thing of all. Everything was ready. The evidence. The timing. The exit. I had rehearsed this moment so many times in my head that when it finally came, my hands didn't shake. My voice didn't tremble. Later that evening, I asked him to sit down. Just 2 words. Can we talk? He smirked. About what? That smirk, the same one he wore every time he thought he had power, made my decision final. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I simply placed my phone on the table between us and slid it toward him. Open it, I said quietly. The first screenshot appeared. Then the second. Then the messages. Dates. Times. Conversations he thought were buried forever. The color drained from his face. What is this? He snapped, trying to sound angry, trying to regain control. You know exactly what it is, I replied. My voice was steady, stronger than it had ever been. He laughed nervously, standing up. You went through my things? You had no right. I had every right, I interrupted. You took my life apart piece by piece. I just put yours back together. That was the moment he realized something had changed. I wasn't asking. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't backing down. He tried intimidation next, stepping closer, lowering his voice. You think this changes anything? Yes, I said. It changes everything. I showed him everything. Not all at once, slowly. Deliberately. Every secret he hid behind control. Every lie he buried under rules. I watched his confidence collapse with each swipe of my finger. For the first time he was silent. Then panic hit him. We can fix this, he said quickly. Let's talk. You don't have to do this. Do this. I smiled, not out of cruelty but relief. You already did this, I replied. I'm just finishing it. I stood up, picked up my bag and walked toward the door. He followed me, his voice cracking now. You can't leave. You don't know what you're doing. I turned around for the last time. I know exactly what I'm doing. And for the first time you don't. That was when it truly hit him. The realization that his control was gone. That the cage he built for me was now empty. And he was the one trapped inside his lies. His anger exploded. Then fear. Then desperation. He said things he never meant before, apologies, promises, excuses. Words he had denied me for years. But it was too late. I walked out without looking back. No screaming. No drama. Just silence, the kind that terrifies people who rely on power. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. I took my first real breath in years. My phone buzzed. Messages I had already scheduled. Evidence already shared with the right people. Steps already in motion. This wasn't just escape. This was collapse. Behind me, his world was falling apart. Quietly, legally, permanently. That night, as I lay in a place where no one could control me, I realized something powerful. Revenge wasn't about destroying him publicly. It was about taking back what he stole, my voice, my choice, my life. The shock on his face replayed in my mind, not because I enjoyed it, but because it marked the end of my silence. He thought he owned me. He thought fear would keep me loyal. He thought control was permanent. He was wrong, because the most dangerous person is not the loud one. It's the quiet one who has already decided to leave. And when I did, everything he built on control collapsed behind me. The night I walked out, leaving the house that had been both my prison and my battleground, felt surreal. The cool night air on my face, the distant hum of the city, the faint smell of freedom. It was overwhelming. I had been trapped for so long, living under rules I never agreed to, constantly monitored, constantly restricted, that this simple act of stepping away felt like an entire lifetime had been restored to me in one breath. That I didn't run. I didn't scream. I didn't even look back. I knew the moment I left I had won. Not in a dramatic sense, but in the most personal, intimate way possible. I had reclaimed myself, my voice, my choices, my life. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight of fear lift from my chest. Even though the physical escape was simple, the emotional liberation was far more complex. For months I had internalized his control, believing it was my fault. I had asked myself over and over, am I too weak? Am I too obedient? Am I too small to resist him? And each time I felt a little less of myself. But walking away shattered every one of those lies. The fault, the control, the oppression, it was never mine. The first few days after leaving were a blur of emotions: relief, disbelief, anger, and a strange sense of exhilaration. Every step I took outside that house reminded me that I was alive again. Not just physically, but emotionally. I could breathe. I could think. I could plan my future without a shadow over me. I also knew that leaving was only the beginning. Freedom came with responsibility, the responsibility to rebuild myself, to redefine who I was beyond his control, and to ensure that he could never hurt me again. I began reconnecting with the people I had been forced to ignore. My sister was the first to greet me with tears and tight hugs, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Unconditional love without judgment, without restriction, without fear. Over the following weeks, I processed everything that had happened. I reflected on every moment, every rule, every cruel word, and I realized how meticulously I had been controlled. But I also realized how meticulously I had fought back, even while appearing powerless. I had observed, I had planned, I had waited, and in the end, patience had been my most powerful weapon. I reached out to friends I had been cut off from, sharing only what I needed to share, reclaiming connections I had almost forgotten. Each conversation, each laugh, each shared memory was like stitching back together the pieces of the person I had lost. Slowly, the woman who had been silent and trapped became someone vibrant, confident, and aware of her own strength. But there was one thing I noticed most clearly: the power shift. My husband, the man who once ruled my world, was now powerless to affect me. He had relied on control and intimidation, and without them, he was nothing. I didn't need to confront him again. I didn't need to prove myself to him. The knowledge, the plan, and the execution had already done what I couldn't have done with words alone. There were moments in the quiet of my new life when I thought about revenge, not as an act of cruelty, but as a reflection of justice. I had no need to harm him further because the ultimate revenge was my life, my freedom, and my happiness. The control he had wielded over me was broken, irreversibly. That was the real shock, the true power of my escape. I had taken back what he could never return. And yet, the journey also left me humbled. I realized how easy it is for someone to manipulate, isolate, and oppress when fear and obedience exist. I saw the danger of silent suffering, of living in a cage without speaking, without planning, without imagining a way out. My experience became a lesson, not just for me, but for anyone watching, anyone listening, anyone who might be trapped under someone else's control. You are stronger than you know. And even when it feels impossible, the first step toward freedom begins in your mind. In the end, the aftermath was more than just leaving. It was reclaiming myself in every possible way. My home became a sanctuary of my own design. My relationships became genuine and nurturing, and my heart, once heavy with fear, now beat freely with purpose and determination. The life I had been forced to live under his control was over. The life I chose for myself was only beginning. And the most powerful truth of all? The shock wasn't just his, it was mine too. I realized that the strength I had thought I lost under his control had been inside me all along, waiting for the moment I decided I was worth more. The fear that had held me down for years became the fuel that lifted me higher than I had ever imagined. Walking into the future, I carried that clarity like a torch. Control can be taken away, but freedom is never given, it's claimed. And when you claim it, there is no turning back. There is only growth, only life, only the knowledge that you are no longer trapped. I had been trapped under my husband's control. And what I did next didn't just shock him. It shocked me too, because I discovered I was unstoppable.